You think LinkedIn makes money from you. From the feed you scroll on your lunch break. From the connection requests, the humble brag posts, the profile you spent an afternoon polishing. More than 1 billion people have a LinkedIn account, and almost none of them pay a single cent. So here's the puzzle. How does a free network for 1 billion people turn into one of the most valuable businesses Microsoft owns, generating around $17 billion a year? The answer is that you were never the customer. You're the product on the shelf, and the people doing the buying are not who you'd guess. Here's how it looks from the outside. LinkedIn is free. You sign up, you build a profile, you list every job you've ever had, you connect with colleagues, you read posts, you apply to jobs. Nothing leaves your wallet. So when most people imagine how LinkedIn earns, they reach for the two models they already understand from every other app on their phone. The first guess is advertising. You scroll a feed, and between the posts there are sponsored messages and promoted updates. It looks just like Facebook or Instagram. So surely LinkedIn sells your attention to advertisers, and that's the business. The second guess is the subscription. You've all seen the prompts. Upgrade to premium. See who viewed your profile. Send a message to someone you don't know. Watch the online courses. A monthly fee paid by the user for a handful of extra features. And both of these are real. LinkedIn genuinely sells ads, and it genuinely sells premium subscriptions. The premium business alone is enormous. Microsoft announced in early 2025 that LinkedIn had crossed about $2 billion in premium subscription revenue over the previous 12 months. $2 billion. That sounds like the engine right there. But sit with that number for a moment, because it's about to flip the whole story. LinkedIn's total revenue is somewhere around $17 billion a year. So all of those premium subscriptions, from everyone who ever upgraded to see who looked at their profile, add up to only about $1 in every 8 that LinkedIn earns. The subscription you might actually pay for is a minor slice. And advertising is bigger, but it still isn't the heart of it. The biggest pile of money at LinkedIn comes from a door most members never even walk through. So where does the money really come from? To see it, start with who owns LinkedIn and what they paid. In 2016, Microsoft bought the company for about $26.2 billion in cash. That's the figure in Microsoft's own announcement. It was at the time the largest acquisition Microsoft had ever made in its entire history. Now think about that. You do not pay $26 billion for a place where people post about their work anniversaries and repost motivational quotes. Microsoft paid that price because LinkedIn is the single largest, most current database of professionals on Earth, and it is maintained for free by the people inside it because they want to be found. And being found is the whole game. The people who desperately want to find those professionals are recruiters and companies trying to hire. That, quietly, is LinkedIn's real business. It's a product line called Talent Solutions, and it is the largest single source of revenue LinkedIn has. By most estimates, it's somewhere around 60% of the company. A recruiter pays for a powerful tool called LinkedIn Recruiter that can search the entire member base by job title, by city, by skill, by who recently changed jobs, by who has quietly flipped the switch that says they're open to offers, and then message those people directly. That access is not free and it is not cheap. Let's put a number on it. LinkedIn doesn't publish an official price list for the full recruiter product, but buyers consistently report that an enterprise seat runs somewhere between roughly $9,000 and $15,000 per recruiter, per year. Per seat. A company with a 10-person recruiting team can be paying north of $100,000 a year every year, just for the right to search and message the profiles that you and 1 billion other people fill in for free. You do the data entry, they pay the subscription, multiply that across hundreds of thousands of employers, and you can see how a free social network turns into a $17 billion business. And notice what the recruiter is really buying. It isn't the messaging tool. It isn't the fancy search interface. Those are easy to build. What the recruiter is paying for is reach into the one place where the candidate they want has already raised their hand. Think about how strange that is. Across the rest of the internet, finding the right software engineer in a particular city, with a particular skill, who might be willing to move, would cost a fortune in guesswork. On LinkedIn, that person has helpfully labeled themselves, job title, employer, location, skills, and very often a quiet signal that says they're open to something new. The recruiter isn't buying software. They're buying a shortcut through millions of people, paved entirely by the people themselves. Here's the scale of what's been built. LinkedIn posted its first $10 billion year back in fiscal 2021, and Microsoft's chief executive noted that revenue had nearly tripled in the 5 years since the acquisition. By fiscal 2024, revenue had climbed about 9% in a single year, adding roughly $1.4 billion to land somewhere around $16 billion. And by fiscal 2025, LinkedIn brought in close to $18 billion. That is a business roughly the size of Netflix, sitting on top of a network you use for free. And the largest slice of it is the recruiting machinery you've probably never once opened. Hiring is the heart of LinkedIn. So why does this work, and why can't a rival just copy it? Because of the flywheel underneath it, and the flywheel is almost impossible to fake. It starts with you, and the strange fact that you maintain LinkedIn's most valuable asset for free, and you do it gladly. Every time you update your title, add a skill, announce a new job, or flip that little setting that says you're open to work, you are updating a record that recruiters pay thousands of dollars a year to search. No other database on Earth keeps itself this current, because no other database has a billion people with a personal incentive to keep their own entry accurate and impressive. You want to be found. So you keep the file fresh. For free? That's why LinkedIn will never, ever charge you to keep a profile. Charging members would shrink the database, and the database is the entire asset. The free social network is not a charity, and it isn't a side project. Functionally, it works like the bait. Its only job is to be so universal, so default, that every professional on the planet feels they have to keep a current profile, just in case. The more complete the database, the more valuable it becomes to the people who pay to mine it. The feed, the posts, the notifications, the little dopamine hit when someone views your profile, all of it exists to pull you back, to keep you active, and to keep your record up to date. And once you see that the data is the real product, every other revenue line clicks into place behind it. Premium, the subscription you might actually buy, is really just the recruiter's power sold in miniature to an individual. It lets you see who viewed you and message strangers, which is a watered down version of exactly what a recruiter does at industrial scale. There's also a product called Sales Navigator, which is the very same professional graph, repackaged and sold to salespeople hunting for prospects. The pattern is always the same: build one database. Sell access to it 4 different ways: to the recruiter, to the salesperson, to the individual who wants an edge, and to the advertiser. And that advertiser deserves a closer look, because it shows you just how much the data is worth. Advertising at LinkedIn is meaningful but smaller than hiring, and it is special for one reason. LinkedIn can let an advertiser target you by your verified job title, your employer, your seniority, your industry, because you typed all of it in yourself, and you keep it accurate. On most platforms, advertisers are guessing. They watch what you click and try to infer who you might be. On LinkedIn, you've already filled out the form, and you've told them whether you're a chief financial officer or an intern. That is enormously valuable to a business selling expensive software or services, and the price of those ads reflects it. Back in fiscal 2021, LinkedIn's advertising business passed $1 billion in a single quarter for the first time, and it had grown 97% in a year, nearly doubling. The point is simple. Every single revenue line drinks from the same well the profiles a billion people maintain for free. It's worth pausing on just how much more valuable this quiet network is than the loud ones. LinkedIn earns somewhere around $17 to $18 billion a year. Compare that to X, the platform formerly called Twitter, which by outside estimates generated roughly $2.5 billion in 2024, and has been sliding. So the buttoned-up professional network, the one nobody calls fun, earns something like 7 times what the loud one does. And the reason is precisely that LinkedIn doesn't really live on selling your attention. It lives on selling access to who you are, professionally, and who you might be willing to talk to about a new job. Attention is cheap and volatile. A verified, current, searchable career history is rare and durable. That's the asset Microsoft paid $26 billion for. There's a subtle, important thing here about incentives, and it's worth saying carefully. LinkedIn's biggest customer isn't the job seeker. It's the company doing the hiring, so the product is tuned understandably and openly to serve the people who pay. The recruiters get the powerful search, the direct messaging, the filters, the analytics. You get a free profile and a feed. That's not a trick and it's not hidden. It's a disclosed, mutual trade. You hand over a current professional record, and in return you get a free, genuinely useful tool for being discovered, for staying in touch, for getting hired. It is a fair deal. It's just not the deal most people think they're making. They think they're the user. In the economics of the business, they're closer to the inventory, and the flywheel keeps turning. More members make the database more complete. A more complete database makes the recruiting tools more powerful and more expensive, which is where the real money lies. More money lets LinkedIn keep the network free, polished and addictive, which pulls in more members, who add more data. Round and round. A competitor can build a slick app in a weekend. What it cannot build in a weekend is a billion people who feel obligated to keep their resume permanently up to date in one specific place. The free network you take completely for granted is the moat. So here's what LinkedIn really is. Not a social network that happens to sell some ads and some subscriptions on the side. It is a recruiting and professional data business that gives away a social network in order to keep the data flowing in. The feed, the posts, the connection requests, all the things that feel like the product are the funnel. You are not the customer paying for LinkedIn. You're the asset that LinkedIn sells access to, and the clever part is that you maintain that asset yourself for free, because being findable genuinely serves you too. And once you can see this shape, you start spotting it everywhere. The free thing is almost never the business. The free thing is what builds the data, or the audience, that someone else quietly pays to reach. The search engine is free because advertisers pay to sit beside what you searched. The social feed is free because your attention is the product. The professional network is free because your career history is the product. The rule is simple, and it's worth carrying with you. If you're not paying for it, find out who is, and you'll find out what's really being sold. Next time, we follow the money inside the dating app, where the company's real incentive isn't quite what the marketing promises. Because a match that lasts forever is a customer who never comes back.